Get away, Zohaib.
All right, I'd like to thank all for having me today. My name is Zohaib. I'm the co-founder at Resemble AI. Today I'm going to be talking about how to create an immersive AR XR experience with voice cloning. It's a very long title, but the presentation hopefully will have a few words in it. So we all know that creating speech content is very difficult. If you've made a game before, if you've tried to hire voice actors, if you've tried to work with all the logistics that goes into it, if you've worked through the scripting process, the casting process, the recording process, and then if you're lucky, you have some sort of post-production process, you know it's very linear. The script writers work in their own little silo. It goes to a casting process. You have a little bit of a time, the sliver of a time to record, which hopefully your script is completely done. And then once that person walks out the door, you're left with some sort of static assets that are possible to change. Now, I tried to find words to describe what this process is. The only words I could find is it really sucks. It sucks because it allows no creativity whatsoever. So if you are a computer graphics guy or person, you know that you can use existing tools and workflows to, from start to finish, from prototyping to the point you have something that's production ready, to the point you can go and say, oh, you know what, like I wanted to make this look like this. Even after you ship your game, you can go ahead and say, oh, you know what, I need an update that fixes these assets. You can have things like data changes and on-the-fly updates that you can send to your game, but you can't really do that with audio. And that's what kind of bothers us. So at Resemble, what we're trying to do is allow you to clone voices such that you can create synthetic speech with as little data as possible that capture all the expressiveness of your speakers. So for example, these are both cloned voices. You're going to listen to one right now.
The worst part of my job is flying around the world, being away from my family just to record 10 minutes of audio for an ad.
And if you don't realize who that is, you have been living under a rock. That was Ellen. And if you're not from the US, which I think a lot of you aren't.
Asked whether he had lied to the monarch about his reasons for the suspension, he replied, absolutely not.
And that was Stephen Fry. You can tell those two voices are very distinct. One is female, one is male. Stephen Fry has an accent, or Ellen has an accent, whichever way you look at it. But the speech synthesis model is able to capture both really well with very little data. And what's really cool is this builds up to something that we call Resemble Fill. The idea is very common in post-production. You're going to have words that were said incorrectly, or if you're making VR, AR experiences, you're making experiences that are first person. So the person is immersed in the game, visually immersed in the game, but the characters around them all talk to that person as if it was just another ordinary person playing a game. Imagine if you had the following sentence, which I'll play now.
The following is a conversation with Joe Rogan.
And that's what you recorded initially. Now, imagine Joe, we changed his name to Joseph. I realized we had this revelation. His name is actually Joseph Rogan. And we screwed up. So what if we go ahead and scratch out Joe and replace it with Joseph?
The following is a conversation with Joseph Rogan.
And now all of a sudden you had the exact same intonation and the exact same prosody that you had from the original, but we were able to replace that one word. And this is really powerful because it can allow you to not only fix things in post-production, but it can also allow you to create content that's truly dynamic. It's personalized. So now you can actually say things like on the fly, generate speech that is like calling your player by name. And depending on what action is occurring, it actually tailors that audio experience just like you would the visuals. Now, the really cool thing is we allow you to capture a lot of detail with these voices. So in the previous 3 clips, those are real humans. But what if it was a cartoon character?
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
And that's Homer Simpson, which is a cartoon character. So it's able to take that voice and capture how he would actually deliver that sentence. Same thing here.
The gates of Hades have never held me. Let them suffer.
That was Kratos from God of War. That's real Kratos. So he's a very expressive dude, right? He's like, he has this voice that's like very distinctive. But we're even able to clone that.
Prepare for your death. It is closer than you think.
And we're able to actually capture the emotions from what you just heard the first time to what was heard the second time, where the first phase was a little bit more emphasized and the second was a little bit more subtle. Now, these voices are created in a couple of different ways. One is through a web interface, which looks like something on the right, where we give you a few sentences to read out loud. You go ahead and you record them. And this is great if you want to bring your own voice into the game or into any experience. Or the more powerful option that we have is just uploading raw data to us. So you go in, you say, I have this audio file of this speaker, and like they said something like completely not scripted or scripted but not provided by you. And I want to use that in order to create more content. And you can upload that raw data directly to us and we'll handle it from there. Now, what's really powerful is the editor that we give you to actually play around and tune the audio the way that you want. So language is very ambiguous, and voice with language is also very ambiguous. You can say the exact same thing in a dozen different ways and give off a completely different performance. And really, the essence of the editor is a simple visual way of going in, typing in some content, and then going in and tuning the emotion the way that you want it to be tuned. And the way you tune these emotions is something that we call gradients, so speech gradients. Speech gradients is our way of allowing you to become the director. So when you are working with a voice talent in real life, you will very often look at them and say, you know, this one word, I want this one word to be emphasized. I want the pitch to go up here. I want you to speed up from this word onwards. I want you to speed up, and then, or here, I want you to slow down. And we think of these as gradients. We don't think of these as just one raw singular emotion. You're hardly ever angry for an entire sentence. You may go from annoyed to being angry. You may go from being annoyed to asking a question at the end. And this kind of allows you to transition from one of these emotions to another. So it's not very binary. So let's look at an example here. So a short sentence, I think that's actually mine. See how it's said without any emotions applied.
I think that's actually mine.
Right? Compared to, I think that's actually mine. So this one, she'll be a little bit more assertive.
I think that's actually mine.
Right? A little bit quicker, a little bit more assertive here. Right? And the third one here, the think, is that word that we really want to emphasize.
I think that's actually mine.
So her pitch goes up on that think, right? So you're able to use that gradient editor that I showed you earlier, and you're able to take the exact same sentence said by the exact same person and kind of modify how it's said, how it's delivered, down to the actual phoneme. Now, all of that I've expressed through the visual editor is expressed with this markup language that we call Ssml, or our extension of Ssml. This basically allows you to, when you're programmatically creating content, it allows you to construct this sort of markup that fixes things like pronunciations. So I can say, oh, my name, for example, Zohaib, is not in the English dictionary. So it has a very particular pronunciation. So I can actually write in exactly how it needs to be pronounced. Same thing with like emphasis or the gradient stuff that I showed earlier, where you can say, oh, I want this portion of it to be this expressive or the pace to be this. And it really allows you to control all that stuff really well. Now, what's really cool is you generate this audio, and then somewhere it needs to tie back into what you're doing. And what we can actually provide you are these alignments. So we can actually provide you this phoneme and timestamps. And it'll tell you where every single phoneme was said. So on the video on the right.
Hey, buddy, creating a new sentence is super easy. It's amazing.
You can actually do things like interpolate the actual visuals depending on the information that we sent you with the audio. We have a API that allows you to generate synthetic audio. Everything I showed you through the web interface is possible to do through the API. You could do things, you generate audio real time. So you could generate a, say, 15-second clip in under about 1 second, which allows you to, which opens a lot of doors, because if you're making an experience that's live, like needs to be fill in some sort of audio or generate some sort of speech as you go, you're actually able to do that. One such case study that I want to bring up is Fable Studio. Fable is a VR studio that creates these movies with these really cute characters. And it's basically a lot of storytelling and immersion that they're trying to capture. And a huge part of it is that character's voice. So when she's talking to you, do you feel like you're actually in it? So Fable was able to use Resemble and the stuff that I showed you earlier to actually take voices and produce content in real time, driven by our API. We love open source work. One of the things that we've open sourced is a package called Resemblizer. This basically allows you to do many things. We think the problem of speaker verification and fake speech detection, we do it internally in our product, but we'd like to share that with everybody else and really grow on top of that. So on the video on the right, you'll see a raw video from YouTube where we've taken a show called Hot Ones, and we'll be able to tell which speaker is speaking at what given time.
I loved Bernie a lot. That was really some great performance.
Thank you.
Jack, what's your favorite episode of Guitarings, the internet guitar tutorial series hosted by Kyle Gass?
You can see like the speaker.
I think the one that you did with Josh Homme, was special because
that's really cool. So we have that. It's completely open source. It comes with a pre-trained model. You don't need a GPU to run it, and it's really cool. There's a few other projects that we have. One called Real-Time Voice Cloning, which is like a starter kit if you wanted to try some of this stuff out yourself. A Wave RNN, which is like a vocoder, etc. Now, a lot of this time I'm talking about commercial use cases, so particularly ones that might affect you or your day-to-day work. What's really cool is we've been working with the ALS foundations around the country to give voices to those that have lost it. So I personally, I know I used to listen to a motivational speaker who used to give these talks. He lives out in Oakland, California. And his whole livelihood was that. He was a motivational speaker. He used to give lectures, he used to talk about life experiences, etc. And he got ALS. And he imagined losing that one thing that makes you you. People recognize you by just listening to your voice. That's something that we'd like to give back. And we hope that through our technology we can actually achieve giving your voice, or people's voices, back to them. And that's Resemble. So now I can thanks for listening, and I can take any questions that anyone might have.
Hi Zohaib, Eamon here. Thank you so much for the excellent presentation.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So great work you're doing with Resemble. I'm sure the question that you get asked pretty often, or I want to ask for sure, is does it create privacy concerns with kind of deep fakes but for audio?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a valid concern. There's many ways that we attempt to solve that. One is just through the interface that we provide for voice cloning on our platform. It's fairly strict, so you can only clone your own voice. And for uploading data, we require consent in terms of a video where we tell you to say something very particular. Internally, we also use Resemblizer, which is showed off, to actually tell if the audio that you're uploading for consent matches the hours of audio that you'll send us afterwards, and if it's consistent or if it's the same person speaking. So you can't slide something in there that's not you. So yeah, there's many layers where we try to protect you on that scenario. Then after things are created, obviously things get a little bit more hairy. So it's like you can argue Photoshop has had this problem for many years. I mean, it's kind of a problem depending on who you are. Probably not if you're Photoshop. or Adobe. In our scenario, we do put like a signature in the audio that we're producing, so we can tell whether it's generated by us. But more importantly to us is figuring out whether anyone else is creating fakes, whether we can tell whether they're fake or not. So yeah, we're still on that open source work just to try to improve that.
No, it's a great work to be doing, and that's the problem with all emerging technology. The next question is similar: is how do you handle copyright licensing rights usage with this tech? I think you partially answered that already. Let me ask it a different way. So I'm in children's entertainment, and if I want to make a short film and have voices in my short film and then have them modulated, can I just upload data to Resemble, or do I need to have my voice performer say something specific in order to be able to use it properly?
Yeah, so to your question, you can upload anything that previously exists. Actually, we do prefer performances that were done in that domain to be uploaded so that we can learn from it. It's kind of awkward if you upload like Harry Potter and then you're building like a bank teller. It'll be a very exaggerated bank teller. So that's what we expect. But we do require some sort of consent from the voice talent that they know this is about to happen with their voice. It really depends, and from licensing perspective, it really depends on what your scenario is. So if you are, say, a AAA studio, you probably have contracts with your voice talent already. Much easier to get those in place. We've worked with voice talent that has gone through us, so where we become a marketplace for them, where you can come in and say, oh, I need to work with this talent, and we do some sort of revenue sharing with them. So yeah, it really depends on your scenario.
Nice. Next question is, can you export assets out of the tool, or does it have to happen at runtime?
You can export assets. So we give you the raw WAV files. We even let you configure what sample rate and bit depth you want in the assets when you're generating them. So you can export them out. Or you can also use our API programmatically and kind of we give you the raw audio that's not hosted on our servers anywhere. So you deal with it.
Gotcha. All right, so last question then is, what do you want to do with the future of Resemble, and what do you think is the most exciting thing about voice cloning coming up?
Yeah, so we obviously, like our large focus of last year was putting out a product that anyone can use. So we have that out there right now. You can go on Resemble.ai, sign up for free, clone your own voice, see the magic. It's different when you listen to the magic other than me telling you about it. So that was the first objective, getting the quality of the voices really high, which we've done more or less. Now we've been working a lot on getting that tailoring that experience and the performance more. So we have situations like you can tailor the voice and the pitch and the pace of the voice, but also we have style transfer. So we think of this as like hybrid text-to-speech. There's only so much you can mark up before you run out of how to mark things up. So imagine if you can type some things in and say, I want it to be generated in my voice. And then you're like, you know what, I actually want this word to be emphasized, and I can't get to be emphasized by just highlighting it. So you click record, you say it yourself, and then it transfers your style over to the target voice. So our objective is to make this as flexible and as creative as possible, so it becomes a lot more useful.
Oh man, this is going to open up a whole new can of worms, because everyone hates the sound of their own voice. So you're going to basically allow people to, yeah, this is my best voice.
Yeah, we see that all the time. Like everyone wants to talk like Steve Jobs. So what if we can actually make you not talk like Steve Jobs, not like, it's hard to explain, not have his accent per se, but have his fluency. So like this presentation would be a lot better if Steve Jobs was doing it, right? So it wouldn't stutter as much.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here for the Q&A, Zohaib.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cheers.